Welcome to Flag for Discussion, episode 2 for Monday, April 21st. My name is Farbod Merkazi alongside Jace Hatfield. Hey, we made it to episode 2, so that things are already looking up. If you made it to episode 2, if you listened to episode 1, we thank you. This is the process, this is the growth that we're trying to make. Last episode, Jason and I both realized we didn't really do much of the plugs for our actual content or where you can find us. So let me do that right now real quick before we get into everything. If you like what you hear in this episode, we have socials up. Please follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, at F, the number 4, and discussion, F4 discussion, or on TikTok at flagged for discussion. We're going to... Content on those channels right now is pretty light. We're going to ramp them up as we start releasing more and more episodes. And then lastly, please hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. We have a digital platform where you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. We have a lot of different areas, wherever you get your podcasts. But then we have the YouTube visual feed as well, which if you have the time, if you have the ability to just take the podcast in on YouTube, that's where you can see our beautiful faces. That's where you can see any graphics or any fun stuff we throw up. So that from there, we did our housekeeping. Jace, yesterday was both of our birthdays.
We made it to episode 2 and age 26 on like the same day. So that's exciting.
Exactly. For those who aren't in our close inner circle, we're filming this pretty early in the morning, because we both have plans for later today. But Jace, how are we feeling? How was your birthday?
Birthday was a lot of fun. Got some good Texas style barbecue here in Chicago. Had a warm day. It's rare. I don't get as often in Chicago spring. It's a good time. I'm feeling all right. Feeling better than I was expecting. We're not sponsored by Body Armor. If you sponsor, I'm not mad, but this is helpful right here.
What we're sponsored by is water right now. I like you. I'm feeling better than I expected to. As I know, I've explained this to my coworkers in the past, and a lot of them were a lot older than us. And we're blessed to be at the age we are, but I don't recover like I used to. So it definitely takes takes a little bit of a start to get me going in the mornings after having some fun. But you guys aren't here for that. What we are here for is to kind of close the book a little bit on the Nico Iamaleava mess, the mess in Knoxville, the chaos that actually happened. Just backstory, Nico last week essentially held out from Tennessee practice. As the story goes, he wanted to basically double what Tennessee was giving him. They were giving him about $2.5 million. He wanted it up to $4 million. There's a lot of different areas you could look at it. There's a lot of different aspects you could look at it. I think this is just a story of what happens when bad representation, bad advice gets in a kid's head. Because I've listened to a lot of rhetoric on traditional media, on podcasts all week, and some people are taking a lot of shots at Nico. And look, Nico could be a great guy, could be a bad guy. What I know is he's a talented quarterback who probably had the right to try to ask for more money. But the manner in which it went down is where all the ickiness, I think, comes from. What do you think?
I completely agree. We took this last podcast too. The camps that some of these kids get involved in, they're young. Like I think we forget, like as 26-year-olds, and forget like 18, 19-year-old kids, like they're teenage, like they're not going out celebrating their 26 at a bar, like we might. So I think it's easy to like get some bad influences in their ear and like kind of steer them in the wrong direction, especially if it's like family members or people close to your family. You might be a little bit more like likely to trust somebody, in your inner circle like that. So yeah, I feel bad for Nico. It's a tough spot. I'm excited to like see where he ends up landing. So I would love to move past the negative drama and kind of start to see, all right, what actually happened? Did Nico learn from this? Where does he stand with all of this? Because I still don't think he's really come out and said much, if anything.
No, he posted a couple things on his IG, I think a couple days ago, just a couple stories, make almost making fun of the allegations that he threw the game, which would be preposterous for anyone who's actually saying that he threw the game against Ohio State, the playoff game. But the stories were out there that Nico, or at least his camp, wanted to negotiate more money because the playoff game was an additional game on top of the regular season, so they deserve to make more money. The like we both have said, the icky part isn't negotiations. These negotiations for anyone who isn't a diehard fan of college football and hasn't followed along this long. These happen. These happen as in the winter, especially before the winter portal opens, or before the spring semester or winter quarters open up for a lot of the schools. These negotiations happen, but they happen quietly. Where this took off wasn't just because Nico's this 5-star quarterback who was making a bunch of money and wanted to make more. It was because the idea became that he essentially tried to do an NFL holdout. And like I said, maybe that wasn't him. Maybe that wasn't all of it. The other backstory is apparently Nico and his camp went to Tennessee. It wasn't about the money. They wanted offensive linemen and wide receivers. I want to get your take on that. I personally think that's a load of bullshit because
Yep.
look, this happens in the NFL all the time. The quarterbacks who have leverage over their teams, they try to hold it over them. It's like, I need weapons, I need protection. So I don't doubt that happens in college football behind closed doors. What I doubt happened is that this was the priority over the money. If right now UCLA is the landing spot, rumored landing spot for Nico, well, he's about to go to a place with far worse offensive line and a far worse wide receiver core than Tennessee. So for me, I want to get your take on that. Make it make sense to me.
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's BS. I would say, like, I feel like at this point you're so far gone. Just call it how it is. Like, just tell us the truth. Like, why are you doing this? It's really for money. Because I don't buy the offense thing either. Sure, there's better offenses than Tennessee's out there. I'm sure in college football, but not many. Offensive line, wide receiver room. Plus, like, kind of alluding to what you said. Think of NFL holdouts, or maybe even just NFL guys. Like, think of Tom Brady when he went to Tampa Bay. Took a little bit of a pay cut so that way they could afford to pay multiple wide receivers, bring in Gronk, buff up the O-line. See, like, a good leader will do that. Good leaders, if they truly want, like, to succeed and they feel like they need more help, there's other ways to do that than, like, holding your program hostage for more money, which takes away from your ability to get those weapons that you're claiming you wanted. And like you said, UCLA, a steep downgrade from Tennessee in terms of caliber and firepower. So I don't buy it. If it is UCLA, but I don't buy it.
No, I think we should get into the UCLA aspect of it, but I want to close out the Nico aspect by reiterating something for a third time. This happens in college football, but it happens behind closed doors.
That's a great point.
I would not be shocked if last year, like, for Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, you think he was going to come to Oregon without the guarantees of roster construction, like, things were set up to help a left-hand quarterback succeed. The playbook was there. There's a lot of different things that happen I'm sure there's wide receivers in college who are like, I want guarantees the next year I'll get this many targets, or I'll be involved in the playbook this many times. So these negotiations happen. So it's not the fact that Nico and his camp are bad people, but they went about this probably the worst possible way they could. Let's quickly talk about the UCLA aspect of this. Right now, Nico's rumored to go to UCLA. There's multiple media personalities out there and beat reporters who are basically saying he hasn't signed his deal yet, but that's where it's looking like. So his brother last year, Madden, had was about to sign with UCLA, and then backed out of his commitment right before signing day and went to Arkansas. Um, the UCLA angle of this, where are they going to be? Do you think if they get Nico, are they ready for a quarterback? I know that's a weird thing to say, but is that program even there?
Oh, I think that's the right question. I don't think so. Like, look at well, I guess we'll see what happens with Dante Moore this year, but he seems like he was in a similar spot as Nico talent and potential wise, in terms of young quarterback. I kind of know this kid's all the potential in the world. Just kind of got to put it together. And he struggled at, or sorry, 2 years ago, struggled at UCLA. Had some moments of brilliance and like moments where you're like, yeah, this kid's a stud. And then he had moments like in big games where he played pretty poorly, just to be honest. And he's since transferred out. As as we know, he'll be Oregon's starting quarterback this year, presumably. Um, I think Nico would be going to like the same scenario. I don't think UCLA got any better last year. They haven't really recruited super well. Coaching staff has been picked apart. If all the good pieces are gone, no, there's not a lot of hope for that program. The Big Ten is going to be tough this year. I'm not buying in on with or without Nico. I think UCLA is going to struggle. So it's a big downgrade if you're Nico.
That's
kind of where I stand with UCLA. I'm not bought in on them.
That's the other aspect of it for me. I think it's pretty frustrating. And once again, we're going back to the Nico angle of it, but it's pretty frustrating reading the stories about how they wanted better offensive line, better receivers, and then the first place that the place he might sign, he's rumored to sign, is a complete and steep downgrade in all of it. Deshaun Foster could be a great coach. We know Josh Heupel is a good coach. Like, we don't know where Deshaun Foster is coaching wise because of the roster he was given last year. With that said, Nico could only go to any non-SEC school because of the SEC to SEC rule. So he would have to. I'm sure he could light it up in the Big Ten. He could. I hope he sets himself up to be a first day pick in the NFL draft out of UCLA if he goes to UCLA. For me, it's more. This is more of a sign if he does end up at UCLA, where UCLA's commitment to football is shifting. Because I think through the chip days and up until now, commitment was a lot more towards basketball at UCLA. And it still is for sure. But if they have the financials to at least get some sort of deal done with Nico, then that means there's more investment coming in. There's more donor money coming in. I heard this past week Joel Klatt said there's been a silent amount of money influx that UCLA has experienced over the last couple of months. If donors are buying in and they're gonna be buying in on the program, that's great. It's not necessarily just a Nico thing for me. It's could UCLA become a much better program within the Big Ten hierarchies, and this is a good sign of getting there.
Yeah, this is a good starting step. I mean, we know the talent's not lacking in LA. The talent's there to be recruited and to bringing in a Nico, a bigger brand. I think would be a good image for those younger kids. Seeing a 5-star, big name, big brand at your school definitely helps. Especially if you can like bring Nico in and retain him, because I think losing Dante Moore probably hurts that image a little bit. So I think that would be a good chance for them if they can like manufacture 7 wins this year and keep growing that way. I could see a world where they go 8-4 in 3 years and have some recruiting momentum. Not saying I can see that world.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm with you. This is a good stepping stone for them if UCLA is the destination for Nico.
All right, so let's go into our let's stay in the portal, but let's talk about the portal in general. So I'm gonna look to the right because I got some stats. On Wednesday of this past week, the 16th, Jesus. On Wednesday the 16th, the spring portal opened up, and the transfer portal at that time already had 3,195 players already in the portal. By the end of the day, there were 3,922. So that means over 700 kids jumped in the portal just on day one of the spring cycle. Cal lost 5 running backs. West Virginia lost 36. I don't think I'm not hitting the panic button on West Virginia necessarily. I think that's Rich Rod trying to do a Coach Prime level cleaning house and getting his type of guys there. You never want to lose 36 guys in the spring, but I guess entering year one is the time to do it if you're going to. You had a really interesting conversation this past week privately about the portal, so I want to bring that in. But I think just to start, there's a whole aspect on the portal that a lot of people aren't understanding yet. Revenue sharing hasn't begun yet. That house settlement hasn't happened yet. So teams are taking as many opportunities as they can to load up on potential NIL deals and pay for play style contracts to get players into their programs before they have to start divvying it up within the revenue sharing cap. Because of that, that means the spring portal is going to be pretty nuts. Those numbers I read to you were only day one. We're on day 4 as at the time of recording, so it could get even worse. But I want to give you the floor. Let's talk about the portal a little bit.
Yeah, what Farboda's alluding to here, we had a conversation him and I had privately, is we kind of realized like it seems like portal entrants fall into 3 buckets is kind of what we've discerned. First bucket, probably being the most obvious one, what's going on, is really talented player at a smaller program, looking to move up. I think like we don't need to be behind those close conversations they're having to understand why they're doing that. Pretty straightforward, bit more money, bigger brand, better chance of the NFL, better coaching, better talent around you, competing. The other bucket, also pretty obvious, big school, not playing much, and you're like not looking great on the chart. You're getting a little lost. It's your 3rd year at this program. Also makes sense. If you're a wide receiver 7 and you're a junior at Texas, okay, maybe it's take a step back. Let's bounce to maybe a TCU or a Cal or go a little bit smaller, get some playing time, figure it out, see if you can make a move up to the NFL, or maybe you want to stay where you're at. The third bucket, which is the one Farbo and I are a little bit more head scratched on, and we're kind of our conversation. And Farbo, I'm going to ask you what you think's going on here. Kids that are class of 2024, top 100 recruits, 4-star recruits at a good school that produce, like for instance, the top 60 recruit, I'm blanking on his name, corner out of Penn State, jumped in the portal. Penn State fans in the comments were like, "Hey, he played 6 games last year, and we lost like 3 portal players." Like what this was going to play, at least what we know. Yeah. So maybe there's more going on, and that's why I kind of ask you, why are some of these younger guys leaving so early on good schools where it looked like we're going to be getting playing time?
I mean, without reading their mind, I think this is just the nature of the beast, the nature of the transfer portal itself in 2025, spring 2025. I think a lot of people, I've heard this, I listen to a lot of other podcasts, I've heard this about how in 2040 we're going to be hopefully doing this podcast still, and we're going to be talking about how crazy was the 2020s in terms of college football. How crazy of an era was that? And hopefully we'll end up in a much more fun, much more better place in 2040 whenever we're there. But currently I think, yeah, it's a little head scratching because there's definitely guys that these teams aren't like expecting to lose true freshmen or recently signed true freshmen to the portal. With that said, I think there's a couple different buckets within the bucket that you're talking about of those kids who are top 100, top 150 recruits who signed just this past year and are already in the portal. There's one, they were sold a bag of goods by the coach, and no, I'm not saying James Franklin did that. They were just basically told that the program is one thing, their role is going to be one thing, and once they got there, it was opposite. I think that happens throughout college football. And I think honestly, during recruiting, I mean, you and I have seen recruiting visits in our past lives, in our our
Mm.
past positions. A lot of them is just make the kid feel as good as possible, like just make them feel as special here as possible, and then we'll get to the nitty gritty later on. There's another aspect of it is maybe that kid played 6 games at Penn State. I'm not saying this is the situation, but maybe that kid played 6 games at Penn State and he didn't really come in on an NIL deal, but realized, well, now I have tape and I can cash in on it. So that's another bucket out there.
Great
And,
point.
and I also think there's kids who we see this in pro sports a lot, where some guys mentally struggle with where they are as with their roles, and the best players eventually figure out their role and become the best at their role. But I think there is definitely a mental issue that where a lot of these kids were the best players on their Pop Warner teams, on their flag football teams. They were the best players on their freshman team, their JV team, their varsity team. I think there's a reality where they suddenly get to college and they realize they have all these visions for themselves of like, I'm going to go in, start day one. I'm going to go in, be this star, and I'm going to really make a name for myself. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying this is the kid that you were alluding to, or this is a lot of kids, but unfortunately, there's a lot of kids who then realize what reality is, and it's like, oh, I'm fourth on the depth chart. There's there's a redshirt junior who's ahead of me, and he's probably going to go to the draft. I'm probably not going to see any playing time for a year or 2 years, and I think that's where they instead of here's my old man on the lawn take, instead of d- like taking that information and diving in and trying to get better and better and better to one day become that starter, they're like, oh no, it's because of them, it's not because of me. I need to transfer out and go find a better place for myself, in a place that I'll start. Look, all these buckets are essentially just I either want more money, I either want more playing time, or like a combination of that. I can't fault kids for transferring. It's all within legal, it's all legal. It's all allowed. It is definitely interesting looking at rosters though, come fall and seeing how many people in your starting 11 on either side are homegrown versus just transfers.
Yeah, we hit the point. I was just like looking at like various teams' rosters, kind of seeing where teams were lined up earlier this week, and I noticed a lot of schools have added a new column when you go look at their roster that is previous school. It used to just be like name, number, position, high school, year. Now they've added the like the first time I've ever noticed like previous school. And it's like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, like in Colorado, and like there's a few guys that were like Houston, TCU, Texas Tech, and now that I'm looking at West Virginia's roster, and so it's kind of fun that's going on. But yeah, it's kind of one thing I did want to say. Agreeing with you, Farbode, we don't fault kids at all for entering the portal. Take advantage of what you've got right now. Like this is the best time to be a college athlete in terms of getting paid, the ability to go make things right if you're at a place you don't like. Go, take advantage of that for these kids. Now, obviously, there's a lot to be said about the system and the process and figuring that out to make it fair for coaches, players, fans, and maybe save the sport a little bit from going too crazy and one group getting too much power. But in the meantime, if you're, I will never fault kids for leaving to go better themselves, unless it's I guess it's kind of feels like I'm being hypocritical because we talked about Nico, not necessarily faulting Nico. Like that's more angry at camp. We'll more about that later on. But if you're these kids, like go do what you got to do. If you're not going to get playing time, if you're not going to get paid what you were promised, go figure that out. But we don't blame
Yeah,
the kids. It's usually the agents that we're going to be upset with
yeah.
when kids enter the portal.
It's the player reps, it's the camps, it's the agents that are putting bad information in these 17, 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids' heads, where those if those kids were like 20 years older, they would be able to have the life experience to be like, oh, this agent's just trying to make an extra cent off me. It's not. He's not looking out for my best interest. There are good agents out there for sure, but a lot of since just the vast just number of college athletes, there's a lot of shady people who represent these kids too. Like you said, we don't fault anyone for transferring. Like it's this is the especially for the kids that aren't going pro. This is the highest earnings potential, unfortunately, for a lot of these kids. I don't think I'll ever see a point in my life where I'll get a $500,000 check.
You never know.
I mean, hopefully, let's see how far this thing goes. But with that said, there's an aspect of the portal that is very evergreen. So we could talk about this anytime we talk about the portal. But I think the kid in the last bucket that you brought up falls into this, where revenue sharing, one of the benefits of it coming in is that the overall emphasis on pay for play, recruiting, and hey, if you transfer here, we'll pay you this much, will go down. But the bigger part of it for me is schools can then structure revenue sharing contracts with the recruits they sign out of high school to incentivize them to stay at their current college for multiple years. So let's say like you make 100 grand. I'm throwing numbers out there. Let's say Team Y is bringing in a left tackle out of high school. He's a 4-star kid making 150 grand through the revenue sharing deals year one. Then you can transfer if you want, but wherever you go, you're going to stay at the 150. But if you stay at Team Y, you're going to be up to 250 year two. You're going to be up to 350 year three. And on top of all of that, you can make NIL money. You can sign NIL deals with companies and branding, and basically use NIL for what it was intended to, not for recruiting, but for, hey, you come here, we will have all these opportunities once you're here. Not you come here, we're going to get you a shoe deal, so you come here.
Yeah.
This might be the last time we see the spring portal this crazy. I'm really interested in what like some of the bigger schools do, and where we can break down quarterback competitions and whatnot at a later date. But in general, like Oregon has a QB battle, Michigan's got a QB battle, Alabama's got a QB battle, Georgia's got a QB battle, Ohio State's got a QB battle. Where those kids are going to go, because like we said, this might be the last spring portal in general, because they might be voting to get rid of the spring portal, but this also might be the last crazy spring portal before the House settlement and revenue sharing kicks in. So I'm gonna keep us moving along. We have a bit of a we don't want to talk much NFL on this show because we are a college football podcast. But on Thursday, the NFL draft is happening. Round one, day one of the NFL draft is happening. I think we'll get into the nitty gritty, but I want to talk first in general, Jace. Like, which players will you miss the most? From who's leaving our game that you're gonna miss the most?
I don't. I'll pick one guy I want to say from my school. Not to be a homer, but I'm gonna miss him personally. So Farbo and I went to University of Oregon together. That's how we met. So big Duck fans. I'll talk about him a little bit, but I loved Tez Johnson as a fan of him, as an Oregon fan. I think he's a great young man. Obviously, phenomenal football player. I love watching him on the field. It's nice to have a guy I know can get me 18 catches and 170 yards in one of the big games of the year. It's great. but he was such a good person. Just the amount of stuff he did in the community of Eugene, the amount of stuff he was doing. Like after they lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, he like waited to go like congratulate Will Howard and like give him his best, despite getting his butt kicked. So great young man. I'm really excited to like see. I hope he gets a chance in the NFL, and I hope he can succeed and take advantage of it. But regardless, like that's a guy I will dearly miss. He's kind of there. I'm a lifelong Oregon Duck fan, so he's up there with like the D'Anthony Thomases, the LaMichael James for me. Kind of like those kind of guys that I always loved growing up.
He's one of those kids.
Another guy
Sorry,
that.
go ahead.
Oh no, no! Please go into it. Please go into it.
He's one of those kids for me that I honestly, we know his past story, but he did college football right. He did the portal right. He lit it up at Troy. Obviously, he had the connection with Bo at Oregon. Went to Oregon, got better.
Wait, is he?
Hey, I just found that out for the first time today. But he did college football or the transfer portal the right way, or how people want to see it done. Overall, I like, yeah, that's definitely a guy to miss. Before we get to the rest of your players, I want to talk quickly about what the NFL draft, because I missed this, means for college football in general. There's a couple of facts and fictions that myths or whatever you want to talk about with the NFL draft. A lot of people, and with college football recruiting, a lot of people, and I'm gonna say I'm guilty of it too, consistently say college football, if you're committed to the SEC or if you're committed to this school, you're 24/7 or on three are automatically going to boost your rankings compared to if you were committed to a lower level Pac-12 school or a Group of Five school or a Big Ten, like a lower level Big Ten school. There's just that bias. There's just that claim that there's SEC bias within college football recruiting, the recruiting machines that rate the players. I think the NFL draft is always the biggest debunker of that myth. I think there's definitely people who it has. I'm gonna restart here. It has merit. That claim has merit for people who say there's SEC bias, but I don't think there's SEC bias in recruiting rankings. I think there's an aspect of if a kid who's committed to a Group of Five school suddenly flips to Alabama, yeah, his rating could go up. I would argue that's because that forced 24/7 to scout him a little more. Not necessarily like to scout him a little more and say, what did we miss? Because like if he goes from a 3-star to a 4-star or like a low 3 to a high 3 and he commits to Alabama, I think that makes the 24/7 people go back and scout him and look at him a little bit more and see what did we miss. I don't think it's, oh, he committed to Bama, so we got to give him a higher rating. So that's a myth I want to debunk. I'd love your take on that because it just happens. I know Oregon fans, I'm just going to say every fan base has that take that, oh man, watch him go to Ohio State, watch him go to Georgia, watch him go to Texas and be committed there, and all of a sudden his rating is going to skyrocket.
Yeah, I used to be of that camp when I was younger, thinking that way. And as I got older, I think I've realized it's more like what you just said. It's the transfer portal rankings are similar. Like a lot of people, I've seen this in the college football world. We're going to see it in the college football world once we start seeing commitments. Like a kid going to a team and people saying, why would we go after him? He's not even ranked. He's not transferred, or he's got 0 stars. And it's not that he has 0 stars. It's not that he's not ranked. It's not that he's bad. It's just that they haven't gotten to him yet. He played at Missouri Valley State for 3 years. No one was watching him there, and like at least for 24/7 on 3, no one's watching him there. Okay, well now he just committed to Michigan. Okay, let's go check him out. Let's go see what he's about. And then that's how they turn out to be. Oh man, we missed this kid runs a 4.4. I didn't even notice that. Bump that up. So it's definitely a lot of that going on. But just like you said, haven't touched them.
If you think, I'm going to steal something from Josh Pate, but if you think that the college football is in bed with the SEC, with ESPN, with these networks, with 24/7, and they're just there to boost up profiles and recruiting rankings of the SEC schools or the big time power schools in the Big Ten too. Then why is the NFL in on it too? Like the NFL's got to be in on it, as Josh Pate says, because if you look at the stats, I don't have them right in front of me of how many 4 and 5 star kids end up getting drafted or getting drafted high. It's a large amount. I'm not saying that 3 stars, 2 stars, one star kids don't end up in the NFL. There's always Justin Herbert, one of our favorite quarterbacks ever. He was a 3-star kid out of Eugene, Oregon. There's a lot of kids out there who will become NFL stars, get that second contract, get the max money they can in the NFL from who aren't the 4 and 5s. But I think this is where people's minds almost explode internally trying to make sense of their own claims, because if you look at what these recruiting sites are trying to do, they're projecting. They're not saying, hey, this 5-star receiver is coming in and he's going to be unbelievable right out of day one. But no, they're looking at height, weight, speed, explosiveness, like every bit of scouting they can to be like, oh, this guy profiles as a day 2 pick in the NFL draft, day 1 pick in the NFL draft. So that's why they're so much more accurate on that. So I want to consider that myth debunked. I also want to talk a little bit about where the NFL draft acts as like a, what's it called? Acts as like a predictor for college football. I wish I'm looking at it now. I wish we kind of projected it for next year's draft and just made our national championship picks right here. But basically, how the NFL draft is, most drafted players. If you're a program and you have the most drafted players, that's normally an indicator to you either being super successful or at least being in the top 5, top 6. A couple examples. 2019 LSU had 14 drafted. 2021 Georgia 15 drafted. 2022 Georgia 10 drafted. Ohio State I think is going to have the most drafted this year. Like I said, I wish we had the numbers to see for next year's draft of who's projected right now to have the most first top 3 round draft picks, but it's a really good indicator, and once again is a sign of, yeah, you can have all the X's and O's you want. You can have everything that goes your way. You can have the right coordinator. You can have all the money, all the support. But in the end of it, what matters is the Jimmies and the Joes, as they say. And if you have the players, you're gonna be really successful. I think I've been kind of rambling a little bit, so I'm going to give you the floor if you have if you have any thoughts on the NFL draft in general. Now we can get into favorite players, overhyped, who you think is going to be great in the NFL, who's going to translate well, who's not.
Yeah, so also an NFL fan. Obviously, we're not an NFL podcast, so I love the NFL draft. I love it's also a good chance for college football fans, I think, to see guys that you fell in love with in the sport go on to see where you kind of for them in the NFL, even if you're not an NFL fan. I have a few guys that I think are overhyped. I like the word overhyped that you used more than overrated, in the sense that I think these guys can still be productive NFL players. I'm not going to come out here and say that they're going to stink, but I think the air around what they could be or what they will be is more than what I think they're going to end up being. I'm going to start us off with, I always butcher his name, JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State, defensive end. I think he projected out of a linebacker defensive end out of high school. Definitely solidified defensive end at this point, going to the NFL draft. The reason why I think he's a little overhyped is I think he's pretty one-dimensional. Not a great athlete. He was kind of an average athlete in college, which doesn't typically translate super well to the NFL. I think he'll be stuck at that D-end position. He doesn't weigh move interior. I think they said he's around 260 right now, 250. So I don't think he'll be enough to be interior in the NFL, but he's not to be back out to a linebacker. So you kind of get stuck as just an edge rusher. His best use, in my opinion, with his size is building a run game. So I think in the NFL, he could be a very, very beneficial package player, someone that you'd bring in run situations, especially run side, somebody who can steal the edge off using his strength and his size, forcing running backs back in. But I don't think he's a great pass rusher. His stats aren't bad. I think he had 5.5 sacks last year. But he also did that on an Ohio State team that had Caleb Downs in the secondary, so you can send extra rushers. Jack Sawyer on the other side of the D line from him, so he's not getting much attention. So I think he had a decent sack stat season because he was in such a great situation, such a great team. So I project him to be a little bit more one-dimensional in the NFL. Something that I think I hear people saying, oh, this is a guy I want in the first round. This is my team drafting. And it's people that are Bengals fans who are looking for the next Trey Hendrickson to come in and do everything. And I think I would pump the brakes on that.
I think I like that comment. I actually hadn't thought much about JT since watching Ohio State finish off their season. But I think that's what you said right there is a very poignant way to basically say this kid still has all the tools and he still has all the ability in the world. But it's kind of the same problem Ohio State fans have felt for years with him is there's flashes of brilliance, but it's not there 100% of the time. I went to your full earlier because I wanted to look down at his recruiting rating. As a prospect, he was the second best player in the country, projected wise. He number one D lineman, number one out of the state of Washington. His projection was to be a game wrecker. And it's just not he can be, but it's a little more inconsistent than I think a lot of people want. I'm going to try to move us along, but I see on your list, if you don't mind me reading them out, it's just overhyped. You have JT, Tuimoloau, Shador Sanders. That we should talk about that one. Jalen Walker from Georgia, Tyler Warren. And then I want to quickly talk about, so great, you have Cam Ward. So we'll talk about the difference in what you think between Shador and Cam. I also want to talk about, you have under great Colson Loveland. I think a lot of people might think that's a little controversial, to say the least, between Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren. I think every tight ends, both of them are awesome, but why do you have Warren in overhyped and Loveland in great? I thought Warren was the better blocker of the two, but Loveland's essentially like a oversized wide receiver in some people's mind.
Yes, so first time I really got introduced to Tyler Warren was at USC pass. I was I'd heard his name, but that was the first time I had oh my goodness, this guy is unbelievable. That was one of the most impressive performances I've seen from any pass catcher in a college football game. So because of that, I was really high on Tyler Warren for a long time. During the draft, I'm also in a dynasty fantasy league, so I do a lot of position player research to try to figure out who I'm going to take. So when I'm doing that, Tyler Warren, I read a lot that he struggles to sustain blocks, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I went back to a couple of their games. The USC game, he didn't have to block once. He's caught 20 passes or something ridiculous. But in that Oregon Big Ten championship, he got shredded by any Oregon. Jeffrey Bussa, I think, threw him on his butt twice in a row. Mateo pancaked him twice. I mean, he just couldn't hold his own there. And I think he's so big and he's just quick. And I think his center of mass is just too high that if you get a big, strong kid that get underneath him, it can blow him back. Then there was another report I saw too that he struggles in getting across formations and play action quickly and getting to spots laterally quickly, which in the NFL, play action, motion, all of that kind of stuff is so big in today's NFL. Your ability to get horizontally quick, the ability to get into base quick is big in the NFL. A lot of plays revolve around your ability as a tight end to get across the formation, up the field, smoke a linebacker, and create a lane for your running back. And I think that he might struggle in those regards a little bit. Again, same thing as JT. I want to make sure overhyped. He's going to get drafted really high, and people are going to be high on him. I think he's going to be a good NFL player, but I'm pumping the brakes on him in the sense that I think he's not going to see the field as much as people might think. Think Kyle Pitts. Colston Loveland, I think, is the complete opposite of that, which is why I have Loveland. I don't want to keep rambling. I do
No,
want to
you're
jump on Loveland, though, but I'll let you throw some 2 cents in.
what I think you're right. I think Tyler Warren, a lot of people don't realize because of just how prolific this past season was, that he only has 1 year, full year of tape. So where Colson Loveland's been around, even though changed offenses, not really though. Colson Loveland, I guess, has had more experience. For me, and you're a Michigan native, so maybe somehow by geography you can explain this to me. But I'm not a football. I'm not a football coach, so I don't know all the X's and O's. I don't know a lot of technique. What I've read about Colson Loveland or the drawbacks for Colson compared to Tyler Warren is Colson Loveland literally doesn't block. He can catch the ball, he can run with it, he can be explosive as a tight end, but you probably want another like a block first tight end to be on the other side of the formation or to spell him every once in a while because he doesn't block. My only like counterpoint to that is once again not a lot of info. I didn't watch his tape, but Mario Cristobal at Miami or at Oregon used to talk about his wide receivers blocking, and he said they're not going to get on the field no matter how good of a pass catcher they are or how explosive they are if they don't block. Whatever people think about Jim Harbaugh, I doubt he lets a tight end on the field or in the game if the tight end is not a blocker. So
Yeah.
maybe that's a player that is like a hand and glove fit for the Chargers to go back to Harbaugh, but I know Sean Payton and the Broncos are looking for a tight end or a running back to act as their joker, as Sean Payton put it. That's my that's my confusion on the Loveland versus Warren thing. I think they're both prolific pass catchers. They're both prolific in the scheme of the offense. The blocking game of it is a little tricky. I want to quickly, because we have to move on, I want to quickly, though, talk about Shador and Cam Ward. Why do you have Cam over Shador? I think a lot of people agree with you, by the way.
I'm big on Cam Ward. I think when he was at Washington State earlier in his career, like when we were in school, we might have been in school actually watching him play.
I think we might have missed him
He
by 1 year.
might have missed him by a year, but I remember us texting about him when he was at Washington State talking about it, and he was incredible. And I remember it might have even been during COVID, I suppose. Now that I'm thinking about it, when he was a freshman or the year after COVID, when he was a freshman, and we were playing them. They were like one of those teams that wasn't ranked, like not on anybody's radar. Had just smoked Wisconsin by like 20 or 30 earlier that year, and it was one of those teams you're like, oh shoot, like we're playing a team. If we beat this team, no one's going to care. If we lose to them, everyone's going to clown us, even though they're actually really good. And we did win that game, thankfully. But I was watching Cam Warren. This kid is a stud. Like we can't bring him down. If he's in the pocket, he's making like he's throwing all over the field, and we can't stop him. If he gets out of the pocket, he's throwing on a run. He's running for 15 yards. So I kind of fell in love with him then, and I feel like he really developed. Like he's got so much poise in the pocket, which I always love. Like when a guy can like he kind of took it too far at times this year, like getting a little like lazy in the.
He went a little too hero
The
ball.
fact that he feels that comfortable, he did. The fact that he gets that comfortable is pretty impressive to me, especially in a Mario Cristobal offense, which we've seen before can kind of hold back quarterbacks a little bit from their full potential. So the fact that he was putting up the numbers he did was also a big reason why I fell in love with him. It's just nothing that he can't like. Every time Oregon played him, I couldn't come up with a way to stop him. If you leave him in the pocket, he's going to kill you. If you let him get out of the pocket, he's going to kill you. If you let him use his legs, he's going to kill you. It just kind of felt like, all right, let's just limit the explosive plays from him is like the only way you can really hope to be, which is a great sign of a quarterback. I also like his mentality when he was asked who are the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL, and he put Calvin at 1 and Traylon Burks at 4. We all know that's a ridiculous take, but I like the joking, like also like I got my guys mentality. I think that's like good team quality. I think that's something when you're drafting a player, you want him to love your team and your players and the guys that you got. So I do like him a lot for that reason.
I think the quality of a number one overall pick isn't just how great are you, but at least for our sake of things, how much is your college team going to miss you? And
That's a good point.
I would argue Carson Beck's a good quarterback. We don't know what he's going to be off of injury. I would argue if Miami's defense isn't dramatically better, they're risking some pretty significant close losses next year just because
Hmm.
Cam Ward, yes, he got them into trouble with a bunch of just lazy plays and he played hero ball through some picks, ran around, got himself into sacks, but he also kept them in games or was the reason they came back and won a lot of games. So I think Colorado's going to miss Shador a lot. I think he's hyper accurate. I think he's awesome. I think with that said, Cam Ward has all the traits of a number one overall pick. We'll just see how both of them pan out in the NFL. Jace, I have some exciting news for you. It's time for your top 10. So we're gonna go
Let's
into
go.
if anyone listening at home has ideas for Jace to break down or give a top 10 list, you can literally ask us anything. Jace will can give you his top 10 breads or top 10 college football. It can be about whatever.
I have both those lists. So
Yeah, and I personally I tasked him this week with the top 10 college football villains. Who in I'll let Jace explain how he thought of these villains, but it's basically anyone who either was a detriment to college football, is the reason college football is kind of a mess where it is right now, or it's players, organizations that the entire college football fan bases just love to hate. So I don't want to give any more away. Jace, the floor is yours. Give a little intro and then let's get into it.
yeah, little intro here. So kind of something I love about top tens is Farbod will just text me randomly in the week, top 10, and then like this year was just top 10 villains. And I even asked him, like, what's your criteria you're looking for? And he's like, nope, like that's on you. You figure that one out. So what I ended up going with was people who took college football in a direction that as fans we don't like. So people that turned it around, made it worse, left it worse than it was when they touched it. So that's kind of what I was going for in this top 10 list here. And to kick it off, I'll start. I had an honorable mention here. Oh, now I'm frozen, so that's fun. I had an honorable mention here. First one was 321 Noel on Twitter. Guy who came out and he would eat poop of state loss, and they
You
did, and he never did. So
you're cutting out, but I'll repeat that for everyone real quick, just to give your computer a chance to recover. His first honorable mention was 321 Knoll. If anyone remembers last year, during Florida State's beginning of their end of their terrible season, 321 Knoll said if Florida State loses to I forget whatever team, I'll eat dog poop, and then everyone afterwards went to his Twitter account asking for a video, and all of a sudden his Twitter account was gone. So that's where we're gonna kick it off with the honorable mention.
villain. For good back. Next honorable mention, last honorable mention. Athens, Georgia car dealerships. Stop giving those kids cars. Holy cow! I don't know what's going on over there. Stop giving them cars for the sake of the kids. These are great athletes. Anyone that plays at Georgia's got a shot at the NFL. Don't ruin their lives. As a fan, I love watching Georgia football. It's a great football to watch. Stop ruining that. And then also just what it does to the community. You're ruining these communities by letting these Hellcats in and go 150 on the highway. So let's ban those. No more car dealerships in Athens, Georgia. All right, let's get into the top 10 here because I think we'll get into the meat. Number 10 is Ohio State's lawyers banning flag planting in the state of Ohio. Come on, if you don't want someone's flag planted at your midfield, then maybe don't lose when you're a 20-point favorite to your biggest rival. Just saying. If someone comes in, if your rival comes into your house, beats your ass, they can plant a flag all they want. And then they also did the Dan Lanning rule. They got the 12 men thing fully illegal now.
I can't believe how fast that went. Like by Wednesday after that game, that rule was banned by the NCAA. you're right. Ohio State's lawyers or the politicians in the state of Ohio, they really got their teams back. I'm kind of jealous, but at the same time, it's
It's impressive lawyer work. I'm not knocking the lawyers' talent.
but they're
Like they're clearly
villains.
very skilled lawyers, but they're villains. I
Yes.
want flanting, and I want coaches to find loopholes and rules because that's cool. So they ruin those for me. Let's jump to number 9 here. It's just any of your rivals' fan accounts on Twitter. They just like anytime you have a school that you don't. I know it pisses all of us off seeing the rage bait dumb comments from your rival school's Twitter. I know we all hate it. I'm calling that villainous because it ruins my scrolling Twitter experience. Can rile me up more than it needs to. So
I get a
we're
lot
gonna put
of
that
angry
one at
texts
number
from
9.
Jace
Yep.
about fan bases just saying just the most random things, and I say, and I try to calm them down. You know, I'm the good guy sometimes.
You are the good guy. I'm the one that'll get heated in those, and Farbode's like the much more level-headed guy of like, hey, let's no, we're good. We don't need USC to tell us we're not. So, Farbode does a good job keeping me calm on that one.
All right, let's go 6 to
Number 8,
8.
we won't talk too much on it. 6 to 8. All right, number 6, bowl opt-outs. Not much to be said for that one. Always sad. Like it kind of diminishes the quality of bowl games and how many bowl games you care about. And at that time of the year, like you're craving football, so that always kind of stinks. Number 7, also not too much to be said. Harbaugh and Stallions. A lot of controversy. Kind of opened the floodgates for like people realizing, oh, I can get away. The NCAA's not going to come at me for doing things. So I think that like led to a lot of tampering. Other teams potentially cheating. Just kind of an annoying headline. I keep saying too. It's like, oh my goodness, do something or don't. Figure it out. The number 8 was Nico. Again, we've talked about him a lot. Won't harm too much, but just that whole situation, kind of what Farbode alluded to, just like people not liking him and like the attention he's getting. And it's not so much him I'm targeting here. It's more so the college football attention that we all now have to give to NIL and transfer portal and the rules. And it's like turned the media into this like sour thing that even like it's made me sour, as we've all have seen. So it's not necessarily Nico the person, but like the air around Nico. Number 8 on this list.
Yeah, I think now is where we're out of the meat and potatoes region. We got Ohio State's lawyers, rival Twitter's fan accounts, Nico, Harbaugh, Stallions, and bowl game opt outs. Let's go at number 5. Let's crank these out.
Let's do it. Do you have that graphic for people to see? Nah, throw it up while I give the top 10. Beautiful. Who's that handsome guy?
I know.
Wow. All right, at number 5, big new kickoff. Stop for my brothers on the West Coast, Farbode. 9 a.m. for Ohio State, Penn State. Come on. We watch that. I want to be at a bar with my friends watching that. I want to be able to text Farbode a little bit drunk. Hey, oh man, this game's phenomenal. Come on. I don't mind the show. I'm not targeting the show here. But choose lesser games is maybe my take. Or like have the show at noon and then just let the kickoff be like at 8 p.m. A big primetime kickoff. As a Fox guy yourself, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the show and what people internally kind of think about it, if that's something you're even allowed to share with us.
I think the show's great. I think with that said, I think even people within the company who put on Big Noon Kickoff would agree that college football might benefit more if the Penn State whiteout was at 7 p.m. was in prime time 5 p.m. slot at nighttime over the day game side. I'm not qualified to really back up a lot on the TV side. With that said, I think a lot of people don't realize the nature of media deals in college football, and I think it's not necessarily Big Noon Kickoff. I think this villain might just be media deals and TV involvement in all of sports.
That's a great point.
Where let's talk about the Big Ten for a second, and we'll get to your top 4. But the Big Ten has a deal with Fox, I think CBS and NBC. So, in a hilarious fashion, these companies all have a draft of games every week, or like coming up. So I think for the most part, Fox will take the biggest game. They found they were very smart and realized the noon Eastern time slot was basically unused, and every other network was putting their biggest games on at 3:30 or at 5, and we could take our biggest game and put it on at noon. With that said, what that created was, all right, so the biggest Big Ten game is going to be on at noon, and unfortunately, even though there's 18 teams in the conference, there's not a lot of great Big Ten games. This is just from my point of view.
Fair.
Most of the time, if you're choosing between Northwestern Iowa or Ohio State Purdue, at least on the TV side of it, you'll see Ohio State's people. You'll have the player recognition, name recognition, the stars of Ohio State on the team, which gives them those big noon kickoffs. Like I said, I'm not speaking for Fox. I'm not speaking for the people who put on big noon kickoff. It's a great product that they put out. They're kind of hamstrung by the actual media deals that they're stuck in, and I know that's not the answer a lot of people want to hear. The other aspect of it, and we'll move very quickly. There's 4 new schools in the Big Ten as of last year, and I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of that. With that said, there's those 4 new schools will not be able to be part of Big Noon Kickoff at their home stadiums very often because they don't want to do the 9 a.m. Pacific kickoff for their, even though it would still be Big Noon Kickoff. So theoretically, Ohio State could be playing, or Michigan could be playing a very low team in terms of like popularity, and Oregon could be playing a top 5 matchup. But if Oregon's home and Michigan's home, they're gonna probably prefer Michigan or Ohio State because they don't want to send Big Noon Kickoff out for a 9 a.m. kickoff in Eugene, Oregon. That's the grand scheme of things. Like I said, it became a villain last year for sure. Big Noon Kickoff, because of Ohio State had like six straight Big Noon kickoffs. But at the same time, it's the nature of the beast. It's a problem in all sports. Trying to figure out TV scheduling and all that stuff.
You said it well at the beginning. They're the scapegoat, the fall guy for just the media owning the TV schedule versus pure enjoyment as a fan owning the TV schedule. We'll pump into the top 4 here. Number 4, the college football playoff committee. Those 2 things. I think it's more just fun as like fans. It's like the one thing all of us can agree on. Like, yeah, screw them. They always do get it wrong. Like, even if they totally right, like it's like a good common villain for all of us fans to kind of like point at and judge and like tell them they're doing their job wrong. There is to do though. I was never a big fan of 12-team playoff, anyways. Even when that started, and then the way it's been executed, was pretty poor. With bye weeks and reseeding and all of that, or not reseeding and the buys and how things got laid out. So I do think a lot of work to be done. I don't think it's a great product at the moment. And so I would like to see a lot of revampments out of that. We'll save the actual things we would do for another show. Number 3, and this is a big one, the Sanders family. This honestly is here mainly because of the jersey retirement of Shadur. I understand Travis Hunter winning a Heisman. I think he's a really dynamic player to play both sides of the ball at an elite level and to win a Heisman at a school that doesn't tend to have like those big name players like that. I totally understand the Travis Hunter scenario. Shadur, I do not think that his jersey should have been retired. And I think the way Deion Sanders was like, oh, if he wasn't Sanders, it wouldn't have been like this. People think he meant like, oh yeah, like if he wasn't a Sander, we wouldn't have retired it. No, he means if he wasn't a Sander, it would be retired. Question, which is just bizarre to me. Like if he wasn't a Sander, that like he wouldn't even be a top 5 round draft pick. So it's interesting to me to kind of see like how that has evolved and just how much like drama they've caused in the college football space. No, I'll speak personally. My girlfriend hates the Sanders family. just feel like hates that like it's all about like him, and that they've kind of like ruined a good school in Colorado and kind of made it all about themselves. But she like, I agree with her. They're kind of using. It feels like Colorado's being used because they were just in a place to be used because they just weren't much of a football program. It's kind of for the betterment of that family.
I
So
would
that
argue.
family is at number 3 here.
I would argue that's before you continue. I would argue
Oh yeah,
that's a I know a lot of Dion detractors, and I agree with a lot of that. Like, I don't like the fact that Colorado is not allowed to play not often allowed to play their fight song after touchdowns because they want
like
to play Shador's song. With that said, I think a lot of this is mutually beneficial, and I think people. We just talked about TV. I think people mistake sports for sports. They're an entertainment product, and there's a reason Dion is on your Dion and the Sanders family, and my camera jumps again. Dion and the Sanders family are number 3 on your villain list. It's like they're not bad people. They're not. It's just people love to hate them, and there's a aspect of them that gets media companies to talk about them. They're entertaining, so people love to hate them as villains in general. I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I think they could be using Colorado. Realistically, it's a mutually beneficial conversation.
no, it's a
Like
win for both of them.
he's definitely made the team better, and he's definitely done a lot for Colorado in terms of like excitement to apply. The admissions and the applications jumped dramatically after he got there. So there's a lot of there, and I would also argue a lot of the negative thoughts I had about the Sanders family kind of dissipated when, I mean, look, he could leave tomorrow, but at least the first couple years and the first year and then last year's recruiting class, it was like he's not recruiting like a guy that looks like he's planning a 5-10 year plan for Colorado. He's recruiting like a guy who's trying to maximize this year for his son and Travis. So there's a lot of my negative feelings towards Dion and that family kind of dissipated when I realized he actually is staying. Like, he's planning on being the Colorado coach, and he cares about coaching these kids up, even though he has all the entertaining things that makes him a villain in college football. We can move to 2 and 1.
Yeah. Yeah, move to the one last thing. Also, I didn't touch on this. I had Shiloh Sanders talked a lot of smack for someone who never really backed it up. Going to that Oregon game, he talked a lot of smack. He went up to play Oregon players like in the pregame warmups, like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. For like first drive of the game, Shiloh took a massive hit for his long. He didn't play the rest of the game. So that was good. That was like karma in its full force there. Number 2, this probably could be number 1, and that's like the player camps, that we're talking about. Not like the Man Passing Academy camp, like the camps of like the creepy uncle trying to make some money off of you, with the agent that randomly showed up at your door one day, like those camps. As Farbode and I have talked about, like, yes, there are good agents and there are good family members help players make good decisions, but for every good one, there's 4 bad ones. Farbode and I have, as he mentioned earlier, we've been in and around recruits. We've been in and around college or agents for the time. There's no NIL, so it was kids going to the draft. One thing we were taught, numerous very like prominent people in the college football space, agents are almost always going to be grimy with these kids. They're dirty. They stand to profit off of these kids making the biggest financial decision, which isn't a good spot to be. You want these kids to make the decision that's best for them, not, hey, what's going to just increase the money as much, because money isn't always what's best for you. And a lot of times these camps can steer young kids bad decisions. We'll see what happens with Nico. That can happen, unfortunately, and it's, if you hate it, that's the worst part about the sport. Far is these people who kind of nickel and dime and screw a kid over just to get a quick buck. It's terrible. It's part of the sport. Bill, and the sport worse. Get him out of here. And number 1, the NCAA as a whole, the lack of accountability, the lack of making things right. I mean, there has been like blatant, like, people have admitted to tampering, cheating. It's been obvious. It's there. It's in front of their faces. They still haven't figured out what they're going to do about it. They haven't done anything about any of it. As I mentioned earlier, like with Harbaugh and Stallions, even that they haven't figured out yet. At this point, like whatever, why do we care anymore? Tampering is run rampant. I mean, we got kids entering the portal with the do not contact tag. You're telling me they just know that this school is going to accept them, and they never had a conversation about it. They've let that run wild. I thought they really botched. You and I were both very pro NIL when it was first kind of building momentum. We both didn't think NIL just meant that boosters can open up the wallet and sign as big checks as they want. We thought it meant like they could, if they were famous on TikTok, get paid for it. If they were so famous that Gatorade wanted to put them in an ad, they could get paid for it. Like that's what we thought it was going to be. The NCAA really dropped the ball on NIL and really creating no guidelines or rules around it. Same thing with the transfer portal. They just really have dropped the ball the last couple of years on a lot of rules, and they've done a really poor job enforcing and creating rules. And it's created this wild, wild west that we don't really know what direction the sport's going to go now, which is a very scary thing for the leading body of college football.
Yeah, for sure. I think the NCAA in general is everyone's number one villain about college football, mainly because it is the NCAA has a lot of. They didn't step in when they needed to. They tried to step in with the Nico take one on his first contract. Then they got threatened with another lawsuit. So they basically backed off and said, we're not going to enforce much. And now there's been a massive overcorrection of players taking control, which great. Players having control is awesome. But there's almost too much now. So the NCAA, we don't need to talk too much about that. They're clearly a top 10 villain. I'm going to go over your top 10 villains list. The number one, you have the NCAA. 2, players, camps, or representation. 3, the Sanders family. 4, CFB committee. 5, Big Noon kickoff. 6, bowl game opt-out. 7, Harbaugh and Stallions and the whole Michigan saga. 8, Nico, but not necessarily Nico himself, but what he represents. In turn, not him personally, but like what his situation represents in the grand scheme of college football, holdouts and whatnot. Number 9, we got your rivals fans on Twitter, and then 10, we have Ohio State's lawyers and the state of Ohio politicians. If you have any ideas for any more top 10s, we're going to try to do this as much as we can with Jace's top 10s. We're going to get better at pacing them out too. It might be there's going to be better ways to do everything, and we're just growing. Jace, so great job on that. I thought it was very, very interesting, very poignant in general. I'm gonna wrap it up there. I got to get to a brewery. My camera is jumping, so I think it's basically telling us that it's time to go. Here's Jace's face for a second. So
This is the AI graphic for you, the football. He's holding like this.
how does that? Hey, that looks great. I like that.
It's pretty good. Just need a football.
Yeah, that was a YouTube exclusive.
Say
You're looking at a YouTube exclusive there. If you
yep.
If you're listening on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the podcast, thank you. Please check out the YouTube channel to see what Jace just did right there. If you're watching on YouTube, comment whatever you want. But thanks for making it through round 2, episode 2. Hi, Mom, once again. If you made it this far, we thank you. As I said off the top, we're just getting better. We're just going to grow. We're not a finished product yet, and this is kind of the fun of the journey for me. We're gonna also try to remember to plug our own shows every podcast. So if you liked what you heard in this episode, follow us on Twitter or X. That's at F4 and the word discussion, F4 discussion, or on TikTok at flagged4 discussion. We don't have a lot of content out there yet. We're going to be continuously building as we're releasing more and more podcasts. Please also let us know what you want to hear or see from us. We would love to answer fan questions. We would love to answer talk about stuff on Twitter exclusives, social exclusives, whatever we can do to just expand our college football reach more. Let us know. We would love to take part in all of that. Finally, please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. I didn't know they had a music. Audible, apparently. We're everywhere. So you can find us no matter where you are. Jace, you got any final words?
I want to say thank you, man. You've done so much hard work for this podcast. You work hard to host a really good show. You work hard to do research. You work hard to set up our rundowns and set up graphics and all of that nature. So you've been killing it. And I want the listeners to know that you've been killing it. And I want them to appreciate everything they like about our show. Farbode probably was the mastermind, the effort. So I want to thank you personally.
Amen.
And I hope listeners can portray that thank you onto you as well.
Look, the brain's got to be somewhere, and the beauty's. That's why I have you. So
But you're though. It's not even fair.
I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun, and that's for me. I was a little nervous even launching a podcast. I think for a lot of people, and not to ramble too long because we're about to close it, but for a lot of people, it's always like, oh man, it'd be really fun to do that one day. Not, let's actually do it. So once college football season ended and you and I actually started getting serious about talking about it, we were like, okay, if we do it, we want it to look nice. If we do it, we want it to sound nice. Obviously, there's some Wi-Fi issues, some camera issues I'm still having. But in general, we wanted to make sure if we do it right. And for me, this has been, I tweeted it out yesterday. It's become almost a passion project that I'm really, I care a lot about. So, I appreciate you for jumping on this journey for me. I appreciate everyone who's listening. Like I said, if you happen across our Twitter or TikTok or YouTube or anywhere on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, please follow, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever that saying goes. I'm not.
Give us the click. Come on.
Give us the click. I'm not a seasoned host yet, but we'll get there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This has been Flag for Discussion.